Hello, I'm Dan Gibson, and this is the second video on the topic of Khadija. In this video, we will address the question of Khadija's house. Actually, early sources tell us that she had just 2 rooms, not a full house, in the sense that we might think of a house standing independent today of other houses. Now, Khadija's house was not in Mecca itself. It was nearby. We know this because of the Cave of Revelation is between her house and the center of Mecca. Listen to this account. Muhammad is speaking just outside the Cave of Revelation, and he says, "I remained standing there, neither going forward nor turning back until Khadija sent her servants to look for me. They went as far as Mecca and came back to her, while I was standing at the same spot. At last Gabriel left me, and I went back to my family. When I came to Khadija, I sat down, and she said, 'Where have you been?' I sent messengers to look for you all the way to Mecca and back." Did you catch this? Khadija is operating her business from her house. She sends the messengers to find Muhammad. They go all the way from her house, all the way to Mecca, bypassing the cave, and with the cliff above it, where Muhammad is up on that cliff, and Gabriel is got him holding there. So the cave must have been near ground level, because Muhammad says he was halfway up climbing the mountain to throw himself off. The issue with placing this story in Mecca is that the cave in Mecca is already halfway up the mountain, and there is no cliff above the cave, just a sloping rock. And the cave is far away from the city. So already there are problems with the house that is in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. The Cave of Revelation is far off in another place. And there's no way that the description in Al-Tabri can be matched with the location of the Kaaba, Khadija's house, and the cave on Mount Hira. It doesn't fit in Saudi. Another problem is a description of the house of Khadija. Qa'idan tells us that Abdul Muttalib owned property in a place called Shib Abi Talib, and that Khadija also lived in the same place with the Prophet Muhammad. Abu Talib wisely and quietly took stock of the situation and decided to withdraw to a valley on the eastern outskirts of Mecca. Banu Hashim and Banu Muttalib, who followed suit, were thus confined within the narrow pass, referring to Shib Abu Talib. From the beginning of Muharram, the 7th year of Muhammad's mission, until the 10th year, that is a period of 3 years. Shib Abi Talib is described as a narrow canyon with high walls, so when the people of Mecca persecuted the small new Muslim community, they managed to trap them all in their homes in Shib Abi Talib. The canyon mouth was so small that a few men outside could guard them and box them in. Nothing like this exists in Saudi Arabia. There is an area that is called Shib Abi Talib, and it's in a little bit of a valley, but the whole area is open for people to come and go from all sides. In Jordan, however, just outside of Petra, is a place that perfectly fits this description. It is between the city and Al-Baidha, just as the ancient records describe it. The cave is between Khadija's house and the Kaaba. The house is in a narrow canyon with homes carved into solid rocks on the sides of the canyon walls. These would have been the homes of Abdul Muttalib, Khadija, and Muhammad. The only way into this canyon is through a very narrow entrance. The Meccans could have kept the new Muslim community locked in this canyon and starved them out, just like the records describe. And just outside of the canyon is a perfect place to keep herds of camels as they would come and go on their caravans. Look at this map. The main city is here. Al-Baida is here. Shib Abi Talib is here. The Cave of Revelation is here. It all fits the ancient descriptions. And now that archaeologists are beginning to excavate in the area, where do you think they found the earliest Islamic settlements? Here, very close to the homes of Khadija and Muhammad and the home of Abdul Muttalib. Everything fits in Petra. What about the so-called house of Khadija in Mecca in Saudi Arabia? In 1889, a brief excavation was carried out on this site, and then it was covered over with sand. I guess the next year, a caller tipped off the architect, Sami and Gawi, that the Saudi authorities were about to bulldoze the area and put up a large building. So he won permission for a last-minute dig, which lasted for 40 days, and his team again uncovered the stone foundations, and they took pictures and examined things. What they discovered was a mosque with mihrab niches. The mihrab niche was developed around 90 after the Hijrah. Before that, a simple straight Qibla wall was used. So if this is Khadijah's house, then these niches would not have been in the original structure and would have only had to have been added later. So the presence of niches in the native wall tells us that the structure dates to after 90 AH. Indeed, there was nothing found at this site that enabled Sami and Gawi, the architect, to date the building. Perhaps he didn't have the knowledge or the ability to date it, or maybe he didn't think that it was important, but the architect firmly believed that this was the home of Khadija. Now, I have a book here beside me. It's called The House of Khadija. And this is written by a lawyer, Ahmed Zaki Yamani, who was the minister of Saudi Arabia's Minister of Oil and Minerals Resources. That's from 1982 to 1986. He then established a foundation to preserve the written heritage of Islam, principally through surveys and imagery and cataloging and publishing Islamic manuscripts. Well, while this is a beautiful book, it does little to demonstrate the age or the purpose of this structure in Mecca, and for this reason the Saudis felt free to bulldoze it and to develop the area. The only thing that ties this building to Khadija was what people said and what they thought, but there's no archaeological proof whatsoever of its great antiquity. So how did it come about that people claimed that certain houses and buildings belonged to Khadija or Abu Talib? It was much the same, I think, with Christian sites. Hundreds of years after they were there, people got interested in what the early sites might have been, and they went around searching for places, and they came up with sites. And the site of this old mosque was called, this was where Khadija's house was. Now, here is a sketch of the house, and also there's some reconstruction drawings. In a small room in the center of the building, there was a basin built into the floor. There are multiple mihrabs in this house. It appears very much to be a mosque and not a house, and so some people claim Muawiyah, he bought the house and he must have converted it into a mosque after he purchased it. Obviously, today it appears to be an ancient mosque. Notice that the foundation that is there is in that foundation there's a small room in the center of the house, which also has a mihrab. Why would such a small room need a large mihrab? Surely everyone knew which direction the Kaaba was. I am sure they never imagined that the whole city was in the wrong place, and that the whole holy city, the true holy city of Islam, the founding city of Islam, was far away to the north. For over 1,000 years, the location of the original city had been lost, and so a new Islam had emerged with a new city. Over time, this city was renamed, and over time the well was renamed, and the new Kaaba was built there, and a new pilgrimage was developed, and even new prayers were introduced. Bukhari records the following about Anas ibn Malik, an old man in the mosque in Damascus, narrated by Zuhairi when he visited Anas bin Malik in Damascus, and he found him weeping, and he asked him why he was weeping. He said, "I don't know anything which I used to know during the lifetime of Allah's apostle, except this prayer, which is being lost." Another story, narrated by Ghalian, Anas said, "I do not find things that were in the time of the Prophet." Somebody said, "Well, the prayer is as it was." Anas said, "Why?" Anas said, "Have you not also done to the prayer what you have done to everything else?" This is why it's recorded when Caliph Walid questioned Sa'd ibn al-Musayyib, one of the old companions of Muhammad, and this is recorded. Walid then advanced until he stood before Sa'd, and he said, "How are you, O Sheikh?" Sa'd neither moved nor stood, and he said, "Well, praise be to God, and how is the commander of the faithful?" Walid said, "Well, praise be to God," and he departed, saying to Umar, "He is the last of the old school." Here in the Islamic records, it notes that Islam that was practiced today is different from the original Islam taught by the Prophet Muhammad. From its own admission, the Islamic records tell us that the early form of Islam has been lost over the centuries. And I think the location of the house of Khadija was originally in Petra. I think we can go and we can choose between a few of them there and decide it was one of these places. One was the house of Khadija, and beside it was the place of Abdul Muttalib, and there are storerooms there for storing things. In Petra, I can go and I can find it. It's all in a narrow box canyon. It's in the right place because the cave is between it and the Kaaba, and so it fits all the stories that we find in early Islam. I'm Dan Gibson. This has been another video in the series, Archaeology in Islam.